Jean-Louis Marie Le Pen was the only son of Jean Le Pen, 1901 to 1942. Jean Le Pen was born in Brittany, like his ancestors, and had started work at the age of 13 on a transatlantic vessel. He was the president of the Association des Anciens Combattants, a fisherman, and a municipal councillor of La Trinite-sur-Mer, a small seaside village in Brittany. Jean-Marie Le Pen's mother, Anne-Marie Hervé, 1904 to 1965, was a seamstress and also of local ancestry. Le Pen was born in La Trinite-sur-Mer on the 20th of June 1928. He was orphaned as an adolescent, ward of the nation, brought up by the state, when his father's boat La Perseverance was blown up by a mine in 1942. He was raised as a Roman Catholic and studied at the Jesuit College Saint-François Xavier in Vannes, then at the Lycée du Puy de Lôme in Lorient. In November 1944, aged 16, Le Pen was turned down, because of his age, by Colonel Henri de la Vaissière, then representative of the Communist Youth, when he attempted to join the French Forces of the Interior, FFI. He then entered the Faculty of Law in Paris and started to sell the monarchist Action Française's newspaper, Aspects de la France, in the street. He was repeatedly convicted of assault and battery, coups et blessures. Le Pen started his political career as the head of the student union in Toulouse. He became president of the Association Corporative des Étudiants en Droit, an association of law students whose main occupation was to engage in street brawls against the Cocos, communists. He was excluded from this organization in 1951. After his time in the military, Le Pen studied political science and law at the University of Paris. His graduate thesis, submitted in 1971 by him and Jean-Luc Vincent, was titled Le Courant Anarchiste en France depuis 1945, the anarchist movement in France since 1945. After receiving his law degree, Le Pen enlisted in the Foreign Legion. He arrived in French Indochina after the 1954 Battle of Dien Bien Phu, which France had lost and which prompted Prime Minister Pierre Mendès France to put an end to the Indochinese War at the Geneva Conference. Le Pen then was sent to the Suez in 1956, but arrived only after the ceasefire. In 1953, a year before the beginning of the Algerian War, he contacted President Vincent Auriol, who approved Le Pen's proposed volunteer disaster relief project after a flood in the Netherlands. Within 2 days, there were 40 volunteers from his university, a group that would later help victims of an earthquake in Italy. In Paris in 1956, he was elected to the National Assembly as a member of Pierre Puget's populist UDCA party. Le Pen often presented himself as the youngest member of the Assembly, but a young communist, André Chain, 27 years old and half a year younger, was elected in the same year. In 1957, Le Pen became the General Secretary of the National Front of Combatants, a veterans organization. The next year, following his break with Puget, he was re-elected to the National Assembly as a member of the Centre National des Indépendants et Paysans, CNIP, party, led by Antoine Pienery. Le Pen claimed that he had lost his left eye when he was savagely beaten during the 1958 election campaign. Testimonies suggest that he was only wounded in the right eye and did not lose it. He lost the sight in his left eye years later, due to an illness. Popular belief was that he wore a glass eye. During the 1950s, Le Pen took a close interest in the Algerian War, 1954–62, and the French defense budget. Elected to Parliament under the Pugetist banner, Le Pen voluntarily re-engaged himself for 2 to 3 months in the Foreign Legion. He was then sent to Algeria, 1957, as an intelligence officer. He was accused of having engaged in torture. Le Pen denied these accusations, although he admitted knowing of its use. Le Pen also criticized President Charles de Gaulle for granting Algeria independence, accusing him of helping make France small. In 1972, Le Pen founded the Front National, FN, party. He then ran in the 1974 presidential election, obtaining 0.74% of the vote. In 1976, his Paris flat was dynamited. He had been living at that time in his mansion of Montetaut in Saint Cloud. The crime was never solved. Le Pen then failed to obtain the 500 signatures from grand electors, mayors, etc., necessary to present himself in the 1981 presidential election, won by the candidate of the Socialist Party, PS, François Mitterrand. Criticizing immigration and taking advantage of the economic crisis striking France and the world since the 1973 oil crisis, Le Pen's party managed to increase its support in the 1980s, starting in the municipal elections of 1983. His popularity was greatest in the south and east of France. The FN obtained 16 seats in the 1984 European elections. A total of 35 FN deputies, including Le Pen, who was elected for Paris, entered the National Assembly after the 1986 elections, the only legislative elections held under proportional representation, which were won by the right wing, bringing Jacques Chirac to Matignon in the first cohabitation government, that is, the combination of a right-wing prime minister, Chirac, with a socialist president, Mitterrand. In 1984, Le Pen won a seat in the European Parliament and was consistently re-elected since then. In 1988 he lost his re-election bid for the National Assembly in Bouches-du-Rhone's 8th constituency when he was defeated in the second round by socialist Marius Masse. In 1991 Le Pen's invitation to London by Conservative MPs was militantly protested by large numbers coordinated by the Campaign Against Fascism in Europe, CAFE, which led to a surge of anti-fascist groups and activity across Europe. In 1992 and 1998 he was elected to the Regional Council of Provence-Alpes-Côte d'Azur. Le Pen died on 7 January 2025 at a care facility in Garches, Hauts-de-Seine, at the age of 96. He had been in failing health due to complications from the heart attack he suffered in 2024.